what do you do in that situation? You take pictures every inch of that sucker. It's just, don't overcomplicate it. We tend to think that, well, it can't be this easy. It is this easy. How many photos should you take on a given claim? What are the required photos for all property claims? In this video, I answer those questions and more in an epic rant that I just did for my fast track students in our weekly live stream. With hurricane season starting to heat up, I thought I would share it with you. This is extremely important, so let's get into it, starting now. This video is sponsored in part by Hague Education. They've got a brand new interactive 3D course called the Damage Assessment of Asphalt Shingle Roofing. This includes continuing education credits, and if you use code AdjusterTV at checkout, you'll get a discount off its already pretty low price for what it is. Check it all out at hagueeducation.com. There's a set of required photos, okay? The required photos that you've got to have on, I'm sure there's exceptions, but I'm going to say every file, is going to be the risk photo, picture of the front of the house from the sidewalk or the street, or to where you can see space, around all sides of the house. You can see the front of the house. Okay, this is to verify that you went to the house, right? The right house, part of it. Address verification is, not everybody requires it, but I think it's good practice to take the risk photo and then take a picture of the mailbox or the number that's spray painted on the curb, or they may have a number, like little brass numbers or something like that next to the front door, on the garage, or at the end of the driveway, or whatever it is, right? Get a picture of that to make sure that you're at the right house. More than once, but I don't think more than twice in my career, I went to the wrong house, had the right house number, right, but the wrong street. So the house numbers were the same going down the streets, but the streets were, I'm sure you've either seen this or you will see it. Developers, I find that a lot of them like to name their streets after their kids or their people that they know or whatever. So they have Pamela Street and Christina Street and, Benjamin Street and, Samantha Court and all that kind of stuff. If you were meant to go to Benjamin Street and you went to Samantha Street instead, the numbers might be the same, 5071 on Benjamin Street and also a 5071 on Samantha Street. So make sure you check that street sign before you turn in there and pull up in front of the house. So risk photo, address verification. You don't have to show a picture of the street sign or anything like that, but look at it to make sure that you're at the right place. Because you might be looking at your Google Maps thing and it's, maybe it's just, there's a lot of tree cover and the satellite gets temporarily blocked and it thinks you're on one block over. Who knows? Just check the street signs, right? For catastrophe claims, I'm going to tell you that even if all the damage is on the inside of the house, like for example, you have sewer and drain backup, it's all interior, right? Unless there was a wind component with that. You need to have at least one overview shot of all four sides of the elevations of the house, the exterior. All right, if you're making real money as an adjuster, don't leave your career exposed. Errors and omissions and general liability insurance from Kaplik is designed just for you, and it might even be cheaper than what you're already paying. Snap this QR code right here or visit cplic.net/AdjusterTV to grab the free guide and lock in smarter protection today. If you're doing a roof claim, you got to have pictures of the roof, obviously, for the house and any outbuildings. If you do have a sewer and drain backup claim or a water claim that's only on the inside, with the exception of water spot on the ceiling, because you're going to have to inspect the roof on that. If it's like water leaked in through the wall in the basement or whatever, you don't need to climb on the roof. And in fact, you probably will get a little bit of a wrist slap if you are on a sewer and drain backup storm and you have claims that don't have any exterior wind damage. There's no water spots on ceilings or anything like that. It's just all inside. And you do inspect the roofs and you start billing for like steep and high and all that kind of stuff. You might get a talking to from your manager, who is going to have gotten a talking to from his carrier manager saying, hey, we don't want to be paying your adjusters for roof inspections when we know that there's nothing wrong with any of these roofs. Okay. That's an on-site thing, right? All claims, Need pictures of all 4 sides of the house, risk photo, address verification. If you got fences, right? Like say you have driveways on the right-hand side and you can get like the whole right side of the house from, walking kind of off to the side of the front in the front yard, take a picture and you get that whole side, then 1's probably good enough on that side. When you make your way around to the left side, because we're going to go front, right, back, left, typically, there's a fence there and it splits that left side and you can't see the whole thing. I might, you take a look and see before you do walk all the way around the house, and it may be that you can get a snapshot of that left side and then just rearrange that photo in Xactimate later when you get around to the left side, so that you have your photos. Every area, the photos for every area have to be grouped with them. And assuming that we do have damage to an elevation to a house, we'll say the right elevation, we have to have these photos and they have to be together and preferably in the following order. I'm going to tell it it's required for our training for the exam. Well, I'll talk about that later. So say you have damage to 3 windows on the right-hand side of the house, along with the storm door that wind took it, blew it open, and smashed it against the side of the house, and then it banged it back and forth a couple times, broke the glass, ripped the little chain thing out of the wood. So you have to replace the storm door. Okay. Photos that you have to have for that particular situation are going to be an overview shot of the right side of the house is the first shot you take, because you haven't scoped it yet. You've just gotten to it. Get your right elevation overview shot, which will be named image name dwelling, overview right elevation, or right elevation overview, right? Whatever I say in the training. And then you're writing your scope. You're looking at everything. Oh, checking the fascia looks fine. The siding looks fine. There's a gutter right there. That looks fine. But we have some damage to 3 window wraps, we'll say. And then that storm door. The next photo I'm going to tell you to take is going to be a picture of, starting from the top, no damage to the fascia, no damage to the siding, 1 or 2 shots of the siding, because that's expensive, and it's going to be like if the contractor comes back and says it is, 3 months from now and you're not there anymore and the desk adjuster is looking at it, they're going to want to see pictures of that siding showing that there's no damage, right? This is one of the reasons why you take photos. No damage to the gutters. And then as I'm writing my scope, I'm writing down, window wraps, right elevation, window wraps large times 3, whatever I write, right? And then I'm going to take an overview shot of those 3 windows, whether it's straight on, 1, 2, 3 windows, or it's at an angle because there's a fence or a house behind me and I can't get them straight on, whatever it is, right? As long as I can see all 3 of those windows that I'm saying are damaged that I'm going to pay for in one shot. Overview of, image name dwelling, right elevation, overview of damaged window wraps, damaged by hail or whatever, right? And then I'm going to get a close-up, 2 or 3 photos of the specific damage to those window wraps. Whether it's hail that kind of came pretty much straight down and didn't damage anything else except for these window wraps. There's some dings in the bottom, the bottom of the window wrap. Get a couple of close-ups of those. Image name, dwelling, right elevation, close-up of hail damage to window wraps, right? These are required photos. But the key thing I'm trying to kind of get across to you guys is that we have sort of a progression from wide to sort of zooming in a little bit and then zooming in a lot, right? To see like the actual damage to the thing, right? We want to see an overview of the area in this order, right? The overview of the area where the damage is or the damage isn't, right? But we're going to say there's damage. And then an overview of the things that are damaged, and then a close-up of the damage. And then we're going to move to the door. Overview of the door, right? Just a shot showing like that the door fills it. We can see, around the whole door. We can see the ground and the siding and everything around the door. Over, image name dwelling, right elevation, overview of wind damaged door, right? Maybe we have the storm doors open, or it's laying up against the side of the house, clearly broken, right? Picture of that whole scene, right? And then in this case, you know, storm door gets blown open and damaged. There's going to be damage to the jamb or the casing or something around the door, like the exterior door itself, where the chain pulled out. And you'll see this. This is a pretty typical one because the homeowner gets home from the grocery store or from work that day and the storm blows in and they get out of their car and they got their grocery bags and they go to open up the storm door and the wind catches it and it goes bam and it rips the chain out. Really common, right? But that jamb, you have to replace the jamb and it might be painted, right? So I want to see a close-up of that. If I'm saying it on my scope sheet, you know, replace door casing, whatever, right? X number of linear feet plus paint. I want a picture of that because you got to back up what you're writing in your estimate with the picture. And then clearly damaged storm door. We don't have to take pictures of every single little possible thing that's damaged to it. If it's bent, if the glass is broken out of it, it's ruined. We don't have to have pictures of a gazillion pictures of something that the one thing that, I'll put it to you this way. If you have to replace the storm door because it's got one kink in it, the frame is bent a little bit and it's got a kink, or it's bent at all, or the glass is broken, or you know, there were some rivets or something or screws that were holding the chain on and that got pulled out, or the little gas piston thing, right? Like that got pulled out and it damaged it. You can't fix it, right? So one thing is gonna total the door basically. So you could have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? You can take fewer pictures, right? Save yourself some time having to import and label a whole bunch of pictures. If one little thing ruined that door, but there's like 8 other things that happened to it, like it's got a big scratch on it and the glass is broken out and it's bent and all these other things, probably don't need to take a picture of every single one of those other little things, especially if you could see it in the overview shot. But I do want to see a close-up of one of those that clearly shows that this door is totaled. Another example of this kind of similar thing, and again, to cut down on the number of photos that you take, because we're trying to tell a story. We're not trying to we don't get any extra points or anything for more photos. I never have anyway. A run of gutter, right? Aluminum gutter is, generally speaking, it's seamless, right? So it comes on it when the guy installs it. He has his little work trailer, and he'll have a huge roll of metal, right? Flat metal on a big roll. It looks like a giant thing of tape, whatever. And then he's got a gadget that he runs that roll of metal, that piece of metal through, and it shapes it into a gutter, right? And then he's like, I need exactly 12 foot, 1 inch, and 3/16 or whatever it is, right? He's going to measure that exact amount and cut off the exact amount that he needs, right? If he needs a 60-foot long piece, then he's going to run it out 60 feet and then install that, right? If you get one dent in that 60-foot long piece of gutter, you're replacing that whole run of gutter. Okay, we don't need, if there's 100 dents in it, we don't need 100 pictures of every single dent, right? Or even half a dozen pictures. I mean, the thing, and the reason I say this, it just kind of baffled me when I was doing file review or when I was an adjuster and I was doing re-inspections and cleanup on a storm. And adjusters would take dozens of pictures of gutters and downspouts, right? And on a typical hail claim, you have a roof, fascia, gutters and downspouts, 2 elevations of siding, restaining the fence, gutter or the grill cover, pressure wash and restain the deck and all this kind of stuff. The gutters might be like $1,500 or $2,000 or maybe the most. I mean, I don't know about these days, but back then, like maybe $3,000 for that in like a $36,000 claim. And they would have more photos of the gutters than anything else. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, insurance company doesn't give a crap about the gutters. One dent totals a whole run of gutters, right? One dent that is clearly a hail dent, not like a rake handle dent or like somebody leaned into it or, it got hit by the weed eater at the bottom or whatever. But like a real hail dent on a downspout, that totals that downspout. Okay. One picture. Okay. That's it. On one elevation, if I'm paying for the gutters and downspouts, I might have 2 pictures of gutters, damaged gutters and downspouts. Okay. And maybe in the whole file, especially if I'm replacing all the gutters and downspouts, which I always try to do, I might have 3 or 4 pictures of gutters and downspouts total in that whole claim. Okay. Because I'm going to tell you right now, like I said, you don't get points for extra photos and stuff. And if you have 15 photos of basically the same thing, different angles of the same downspout, in the file review is just going to scroll through those as fast as they can to get to the next thing. They're not going to be like, oh, picture 32. Let me take a look at this one. It's a downspout with a dent on it. Picture 33. Oh, another downspout with a dent on it. Let me take a close look. They're not going to do that. They're trying to just say, he's paying for gutters and downspouts. Do I have a picture of damage to gutters and downspouts? One picture of it probably is going to be, when I did file review, I was like, yep, they're damaged. Move on to the next thing. Don't take a gazillion photos. You're wasting your time. You're wasting everybody else's time. And you're not getting, some companies pay extra for photos, but I never did. I've heard about it. If that's the case, then yeah, take a gazillion photos of everything, duplicates if you can make that fly. Otherwise, minimal, right? We're telling the story. Overview of the area, overview of the damaged thing, the door, the window, the siding, whatever it is, and then close up of that damage, showing the damage so we can see that it's fresh. There's a hail spatter on it and a dent, whatever. It's cracked, it's broken, it's scratched, it's damaged. It's got a hole in it from a stick from the tree limb that flew across the yard, right? And you do that on all 4 sides of the house, right? You're going to start on the front side of the house and do that, and then move your way around the house, and then do the same thing on the roof. Again, for those of you who've already passed this, you already know this, but one of the biggest time wasters that there is, and this is one of the reasons why I teach this course the way I do, is when people get up on the roof, if they don't have a systematic way, or they have what they think is a system, but it's not very efficient, if they don't have an efficient system for scoping a roof, it's going to take a lot longer than it needs to, number one. Number two, their photos are going to be out of order, and they're either going to, they're going to either rearrange those photos when they import and go to label them, and maybe they get them right or wrong because they're like, well, that kind of looks like the right slope, or maybe it's the left. I don't know. Let's put it with the right slope, or they just don't rearrange them at all, and then file review and QA and managers or whoever that go back and look through that, pictures are completely out of order. That makes people, it steams people up, okay? Because you're trying to get through all this work. This claim isn't the only claim I have to review or QA or whatever today. I might have 50, right? I want to get through this as fast as possible. If you make it hard for those guys, they're going to not like you, okay? You will be singled out if all of your files are systematic, in a reasonable order that makes sense. Maybe we got a hip roof, right? Front slope, top of the ladder. Before we even get on the roof, we're going to get the layers, we're going to get the pitch, we're going to get even with the shingle gauge, if you're allowed to use that, right? And then we get up on the front slope, we're going to take 2 photos, always 2 overview photos of every slope, unless you can get the whole thing in one shot, right? And then we're going to, and I do that first, and then I'm going to scope the slope, right? If it's a hail thing, I'm going to do my test square, fill it all in, right? And then, or if it's wind, I'm going to count up shingles that are wind damaged and make a chalk mark on each one. And then I'm going to take, if it's a hail claim, overview shot of my test square. And then I'm going to take a couple of close-ups of hail damage showing that, yep, and this is indeed hail damage to this roof. If there's any roof accessories, which are vents, any roof penetrations like pipe jacks, power mast, boots, and things like that, satellite dishes, all that kind of stuff. Take a picture of each one of those things, or get a shot where you can see all of them. If there's damage to them, then get a close up, right? So overview of damaged vents, right? There's 8 vents across the top of that back slope. Once we got around to it, picture of 8 vents, close up of a dinged up vent. I don't need more than one picture of dinged up vents, because there's the only thing that's lighter gauge than most roof vents, metal, is going to be tin foil, right? You can take your finger literally and make a big dent and smash it down with your hand, right? As a side note on that, if you got a contractor up there and you're not seeing any damage, hail damage to the shingles, and the guy says, well, what about these vents? And they're all dinged up with, take your finger. This is I don't even say anything. I'm just like, and just push it into that vent and be like, I could smash all these vents all day long, but there's no way in the world I could punch this roof as hard as I could and I would come away with a bloody hand and it wouldn't do a single thing to this roof. But I could punch my hand right through that vent. So this doesn't mean we're total on the roof if you see dinged up vents. The side over. So we're on the front slope, right? Overview shots. Always want to be able to see every possible corner, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain in a minute. And overview of the damaged area, whatever it is, and then close up of the damage, and then any roof accessories. And then we're done with the front slope. And then we're going to go to the right slope and do the exact same thing. Overview shot, to do my test square, overview shot of the test square, close up of damage. Any vents or anything like that, overview of those, just because we might want to get a count of them, right? And oftentimes the carrier guidelines will say that you have to have pictures of all the roof penetrations, or damage or not, right? Then we do the back slope, and then we do the left slope, right? And by the time we're done with that, we're done with our scope on the roof. I'm going to stay up on the roof, and no matter what, I'm going to diagram and measure that roof. And before I get on my ladder, I'm going to add up all my measurements and come up with the grand total of squares for that whole thing, multiply it by my waste factor. I'm going to do all that, little calculator that's Velcro to my clipboard. And then once I have all that, I'm done on the roof. They'll have to get back up on the roof. What I see guys do is they'll hop off the top of their ladder and they'll run up to the peak of the roof and they'll be like, well, I guess I better start with the most damaged area. Which way did that storm come from? Oh, it came from over there. So they're going to go over to the left side and do something. And then they might go over to the right side and, and they might go around and do all their test squares. And then they'll take their pictures totally out of order. Don't do that. You're wasting your time. Just be systematic and take each slope, each elevation, each whatever, right, as its own little discrete thing. Get all your photos, get all your measurements, get all of your everything's, you do your scope, all that stuff, and then go to the next one, right? With the roof, obviously we're going to do the measurements and stuff on it as a whole, but for the elevations, right? Don't be the guy or gal, seen this, that will go around and photograph everything, like they'll do all their overview shots, and then they'll go back and scope it, and then all the elevations, and then they'll go back and maybe take more photos, right? So now their photos are out of order, and then they'll go back again and measure everything, right? Just do it while you're there, so you don't have to backtrack and go to the same side of the house multiple times. Okay. Overview of area, room, right? Overview of the room, and again with rooms, standing in the door of the room, or even maybe back a little bit. Kind of have a wide angle shot on your phone or your camera or whatever. Just get that photo, and I'm going to go to the opposite corner of that room if I can, and take a picture back towards the door that I just came in. Overview shots. That gets, and I want to be able to see the ceiling and the floor and everything in those shots. And if you have, don't do like a fisheye, but having your camera set to wide angle, it's going to be good enough, especially for the desk adjuster 6 months from now, who gets a question or a call or something from the insured or a contractor. You can pull up those photos and be like, oh yeah, I see that there is a ceiling fan there. So you say it's not working since the storm and you forgot to tell the first adjuster or whatever. Okay, I see it there. Yeah, and it looks like, right? You're saving everybody time when you do that. And then overview of the damaged door or damaged window or damaged water spot on the ceiling. Overview, that's why I say take kind of a wide shot so we can see. I want to be able to see like where in the room that water spot is, if it's not immediately evident, even if it's immediately evident from the overview shots. So I want to see the water spot. It's kind of by the wall, and there's a window right there and a corner right there. I'm going to try to catch the water spot on top of the window and the corner. in my overview. Or if there's a ceiling fan, it's right next to the ceiling fan, get that shot. And then get a close-up of the water spot. Showing, the close-up is going to show, you know, it's going to be obvious that it's a water spot from the overview shot, but what's not obvious is going to be what kind of textures on that ceiling, you know, outside of it being like popcorn. What sort of material is it, right? It might be a tile with a certain pattern, whatever, right? You want to be able to, it's not just to show the damage, it's to also show what the thing is, right? The quality of the thing, or the whatever it is, right? And you just do that for everything, right? Deck. The deck is part of the, say it's on the back side of the house, it's part of the rear elevation, right? So we're going to scope the deck while we're back there on the rear elevation, and overview of the deck, and then some close-ups of chipped off, you know, paint or whatever, divots or whatever in the wood, right? One or two or three at the most of those. It's really dramatic, you know. Maybe you only need one. You're going to feel like you want to take a bunch of them because that looks cool. You know, it's like, look at all this damage. I'm getting paid. And when you see big damage, it's money in your pocket, right? The reason why, back to the slope, and I got a story for this. Some of you might have heard this. The reason why I say to leave no part of that roof unphotographed, not a square inch of it. You want to be able to, it has to be a photo somewhere in your file, in your roof photos, that shows every part of the roof, right? So that's why I say if you have like a big, long, you know, ranch, where it's a hipper, a straight gable, you stand on one corner, one side, and shoot back down to the other side, you're not going to be able to see what's right next to you, or behind you, or under your feet, right? The reason why I started doing this, or I realized that I needed to start doing this, was because I had a claim in Minneapolis years and years ago, where it's very, very light damage, if there was any damage at all. And at the time, I'm sure it hasn't changed, but for some reason, Minneapolis thinks that it's Beverly Hills. It feels like the construction materials, you could write a roof, let's put it this way, for the exact same house, cookie cutter house, got one, the same house in Minneapolis, anywhere in Minneapolis, nice neighborhoods or not nice neighborhoods, and they have the exact same style of house, exact same everything, perfect copy of it in, we'll say, Kansas City, right? It's a neighborhood in Kansas City. The estimate that you write to replace the roof in Minneapolis will be 2 or more times more expensive than the one that you write in Xactimate, right? This is Xactimate pricing. Twice or more of the price that it'll be in Kansas City. 3 times as much, right? And plus they have like some pretty strict matching rules in Minnesota. This is another reason why you want to get that Minnesota license, is that you find damage on one side of the house, and they have like required matching. So you're wrapping a lot of houses, and you got a house, like a 2,500 square foot McMansion house that was built, you know, late 90s or whatever. And it's got all this vinyl siding all the way around. You find one hole in the siding and it doesn't match, or there's a line of sight thing, or, you know, whatever the rules are. And you paying for that. That could be a $60,000 claim from one chip in the siding. Okay. When a funny shaped cloud floats over Minneapolis, contractors from all parts of the country will converge on Minneapolis. I handled over 100 claims on that particular storm. I hated that storm because there was no damage, and it was just fighting with contractors all day long, every single day. Over 100 claims, did 6 or 7 or 8 of those a day, and I never met with the same sales guy or anybody from the same company more than once. And I met with a contractor on 98% of the claims that I went on that one. This one in particular, got up on it with this guy, roof sales guy, and it was a straight gable ranch, just a big ranch with a offset sticking off the back for their like screened in porch, or their four-season room or whatever, and then one off the front for their garage, right? So there was basically 4 slopes to the roof. And it was a shingle that was, I knew it wasn't available because I had never seen it before. It was organic, which is like a paper-based, instead of fiberglass-based matting for the shingle. They don't make those anymore. And this one was a weird shape and a weird dimension. It wasn't like, they're either metric or they're imperial, or 3 foot, or they're, you know, however many centimeters, you know, a meter, I guess. I don't know. They're either one of those 2 things, right? This one was kind of like 2.5 feet long. No, it wasn't laminated. Anyway, it was a weird shingle. Never seen it before. Guaranteed not available, right? And got up on this roof with this guy and had to start off doing test squares and tell him that bird poop legitimately wasn't damage, right? Well, how can you say it's because it came out of a bird's ass, dude? Well, I mean, how can you say it's just, when you do that all day long, every single day for weeks, your patience thins out, okay? But I took pictures of every slope. There wasn't any wind damage that I could see. And I'm double checking because, hey, I mean, I could see if I could find any damage on this roof at all, I could probably total the whole thing, especially with Minnesota's matching stuff. And I took pictures of the more normal way. It's like, all right, front slope, back slope, you know, slope this, slope that, right? 5 or 6 pictures of the slopes of the roof. And get down with this contractor, homeowner standing in the front yard, and jumped off the roof to explain everything looks fine with your roof, sir. You know, I mean, honestly, if there was something there, I mean, I have no incentive not to pay for it. You know, yada, 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 explaining everything to the guy. And the roofer, as I got down off the roof, and with this was in 30 seconds of me starting my spiel with the homeowner to say, congratulations, by the way, you don't have any damage to your roof. Oh, hey, Matt, I found some damage, right? And I looked over that whole roof. And I was like, I looked at the homeowner and I was like, and I looked back up at him and I was like, and I don't know. So this is when your fraud, you know, radar starts to go off. Climb back up the ladder, and he walks me all the way to the far corner, the back corner of the roof, and there was actually one of those shingles was missing. And I knew it wasn't missing. I was looking for missing shingles because, again, I could have totaled that roof with one missing shingle. And I instantly whipped out my camera. I was standing there when I took my picture, and I didn't go to the other side and take a picture back the other way. And I would have clearly seen this missing shingle. I know that this guy, I couldn't prove it, so I couldn't do anything about it. But I know that this guy pulled the shingle out and threw it in the backyard, or, you know, stuffed it down his pants or whatever. And I was like, I took a picture of it, and I looked up at him, and I was like, I didn't say anything, but I was just like, you know, what do you say? And I immediately climbed down and started looking in the bushes, and he came down and he was like right next to me. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, I'm just taking a look around, you know, just whatever. And I walked to, you know, and I couldn't find anything, right? And so this contractor was all excited, and he goes, and he's like, all right, wow, well, let's go ahead and get this one written up. You know, I mean, we know that shingle's not available or whatever. And the homeowner goes, oh, I have like 3 bundles of those shingles in my shed. And the contractor, and I was like, oh, well, then just repair it with that. And the contractor didn't say one more word. He just turned on his heel 90 degrees, walked across the street, and knocked on the homeowner's door. The homeowner opened the door. He's like, hi, I'm Bob with such and such roofing, and I'm here to look at your roof because you had a huge storm come through the neighborhood. And I looked at the homeowner and I was like, what do you do in that situation? You take pictures every inch of that sucker, right? And it'll help your desk adjuster down the line. This kind of thing happens, right? Because it gets me worked up just even telling that story. But anyway, so that's the reason why we take pictures from overview shots of things, right? Because it's covers people's rear ends. It's something that can be used to spot fraud. Again, fraud's super rare. It's not something that you see a lot of, but it does happen, right? And some guys are willing to cheat a little bit if they think they're going to get a roof bought. And there's a gray area in there, you know, where contractors, they know that the roof is fine, and this isn't fraud per se, and this is super common. You'll run into this all the time. But the whole pointing at bird poop, pointing at boot scuffs, things that clearly aren't hail damage, and calling them hail damage and fighting you on that stuff, right? They know it's not hail damage most of the time. Some of them don't. Some of them think that any spot on the roof is one granule missing. Well, we had huge hail here. Obviously, that's hail damage. We need to total this roof out. We're not paying for granules in the gutters. We're not paying for that. We can't. I have to see a bruise on the shingle that is soft and so on and so forth. It's not technically fraud. It's just super duper annoying, right? So take pictures of everything, especially if there's no damage or light damage. You want to give, this is where I'm going to tell you to take extra pictures. You want to give yourself, the file reviewer, you know, the desk adjuster later, the QA, whoever, right? If it goes to court, right, your file will be used as evidence, right? If you take great pictures of everything, then that helps everybody, right? So photos are extremely important. We don't have to overdo it with photos. We don't take the thing that I'm sure you guys have heard this. Hopefully you've never said it, but the thing that you hear on social media is, well, you know, I just take a whole bunch of extra photos, you know, just so there's extra stuff to look at, you know, just in case, just for extra. We don't need extra. Just tell the story of the loss, right? Get the required photos, which are the overview shots, and then the shots of things that aren't damaged, and then the overviews of the things that are damaged, and the close-ups to show the quality and the actual damage itself. Get those shots. No more, no less, right? And you'll find that instead of taking 350 photos for a claim, a standard issue hail claim, you're doing 60, 50 photos, right? And it's absolutely complete. Every photo that file review is going to need to get your file through to payment, to get the insured paid and to get you paid. It takes them less time. They start seeing your name. You know, obviously, if you've gone through this class, you've heard me say this like ad nauseum. They start seeing your name, right? And they associate it with, oh, well, I get to Matt's files. They're easy because his estimate and his files and his diary and his narrative and all this stuff, it's all the same, right? It's all lined up with each other, right? So I can go from his estimate to the photos and find everything that I need, right? And he says in here, there's no damage to this, that, and the other thing. You know, the sort of hallmarks of no damage to something would be no damage to soft metal, right? I'm looking for soft metal. I want to see a bunch of pictures of no damage to soft metal on all four sides of the house, right? On a no damage claim. That makes smiles. File review, nothing worse than for file review. It is so much extra work when somebody turns files in that have a gazillion extra photos, totally out of order. None of them are labeled, right? And they have errors in their estimates, and they have either no F9 notes, or they don't put depreciate. They have a whole bunch of errors. That's work for people, right? For the file review person. If you turn in files like that, then they have to kick that back to you. And the worst offense is when you do get files kicked back to you and there's 13 corrections that they ask you to make. And this is something that we've had people do in the past on our exams. 13 corrections, and send an email, reject the file back, right? As the adjuster, you're going to get an email notification saying rejected, revisions, corrections, whatever. So it's going to pop up from Xactanalysis in your inbox, and you'll have to reopen the file and fix it, right? And there's going to be notes in that email or somewhere. They might be in Xactanalysis, but there's going to be some notes with those 13 corrections. Do all 13 of those corrections, and then turn the file back and reclose the file. Whatever, you may have to call the insured if the total changed, right, for a new settlement number. Document that call, turn the file back in, fix all that stuff, fix your invoice, everything. Turn that file back in, all 13. So many times, it's kick a file back, and the adjuster would would fix 3 of the 13 things, put all that stuff back together and send the file back up. And I got to send it back one more time, another time after that, 3 or 4 times. And I'm on the phone with that guy and be like, dude, why can't you, why do you keep sending this file back up incomplete? Well, I'm busy, I'm out here doing inspections. I'm out here, well, you don't understand me. You're just a file review guy. And I'm like, okay, I've been doing this for 17 years, in the field. I'm not going to sit there and give anybody my resume, but it's like, well, listen, I can't pay you until you do all these corrections. So you're just out there working for free if you're not going to do all the corrections that we are asking you to do. Period. Okay? Right? And then maybe before I make that call, maybe I don't make that call to that guy. Maybe I would call his manager instead, or my manager, and say, hey, listen, I got a guy I kicked this file back 4 times. I have 13 corrections. It's not rocket science. It probably would take 15 minutes if he just did them all. He's not doing them all. He'd do 1 or 2 and then send the file back up. It's driving me crazy. Is there somebody that can talk to this person? Right? Whatever the chain of command is, you want to honor that. But I don't know how I got on that. But thorough file. Tell the story. Don't think that you're going to get extra points for being creative, for taking extra photos, for putting a gazillion F9 notes in there. Okay, because you're not. This is corporate America insurance, right? It's as conservative and as like buttoned up as it could possibly be, and they got a set of rules, and they want you to follow the rules. Don't deviate from the rules. You don't get extra credit for deviating from the rules to do extra. Just do what they ask you to do. Okay. Big part of this course is to see if you just do what we ask you to do and you just follow the instructions. It's not a hard course if you do that. If you don't do that, then it's a nightmare for you. And it's weeks go by and you're still trying to get your exam passed. And it's just don't overcomplicate it. I know as men, we tend to think that, well, it can't be this easy. Let's make sure that we got it. It is this easy. Okay. It's just a lot of moving parts that you have to have your brain wrapped around, and you have to have a process for all this stuff. So, rant complete. So hopefully you have your home state or designated home state license. But what are the next 6 key licenses that you absolutely must get for 2025? Watch this next video for the answer. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great storm.